Welcome back into the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I am your host, Garret Price, and I am so excited to tell you about our special guest today. He is from ESPN, and he has been all over the place, Mr. Benjamin Solak. Ben, how you doing?
I'm well, man. How you been?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I know we've been in a fantasy football league together for 4 or 5 years now, but this is the first chance we've had to talk ball in person, so I'm pretty excited.
I'm pretty sure I don't do too well in this fantasy league. I think this is one where I've picked over the last couple of years. So we're turning things around.
Hey, it takes some time. Like, was that your first ever dynasty league? Because I'm sure you had done
No,
fantasy before that, but where were you at in like the dynasty landscape?
no, I'm in a few. I've done a few for a while. With buddies and then with people that are more so in the space. I'm good at keeping track of teams for the first like 5 or 6 weeks. Then inevitably we get to a busy Sunday and
Yeah,
I got a bunch of work stuff going on. And I forget to, and then the wheels start to come off the wagon a little bit.
I hear you, man. I hear you. So we're gonna get into some prospect talk, but as we do that, I kind of want your overall thoughts on this. We have your player evaluations, and then you have the draft capital and the draft landing spot. If
Mm-hmm.
there was a pie, what percentage would you give like your draft evaluation of a player, the draft capital, and then the landing spot? Like as far as significance go, like how would you break that up?
I think that like landing spot can be the biggest percentage of the pie conditional on the place, right? It's not landing spot isn't always the biggest deal until it's like, you know, a wide receiver who lands with Kyle Shanahan and the San Francisco 49ers, and you start paying a little bit more attention, right? Um, like I was trying to take a running back that lands with the 49ers offense as well. So there are some, I would say, like spots where landing spot the specific team ends up taking like a more outsized portion of the pie, right? I think that
Mhm.
when Derrick Henry went to Baltimore last year, everybody was a lot more interested in that than if Derrick Henry went to just some average team that was going to run the ball an average amount of times, right? So there's
Sure.
some landing spots that can matter more. So that like with that one, that's kind of like 1A there. And then I would say that my evaluation is number two, and then capital is number three. Simply be like, and like capital matters from a large scale perspective. People care about it too much from a small scale perspective. Where like, okay, RJ Harvey going in the second round is a substantial deal. That is very meaningful relative to where the rest of the running back class went. We heard this is a great running back class, and like only four of them went in the first two rounds. Excuse me, five of them, and one of them was RJ Harvey. Like that's a big deal. But then people start caring about like, oh, like Tre Harris went 3 picks before Jack Bash. It's like it's just because the Chargers picked before the Raiders. Like it's not like that sort of stuff. I think we get too far in the weeds on that sort of stuff. And so I draft capital matters, but I think people get too specific with it, too hyper focused on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you mentioned this running back class. We talked about it pre-draft. I don't know where you were in the class, but I was definitely very, very high on this running back class. Thinking, I mean, there's some elite guys, and we saw really good draft capital for the top four guys. We had the two guys go in the first round, Hampton and Genty, and then the two Ohio State guys go in the top 10 of the second round.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, it kind of petered off then, and we didn't really get the massive amount of day two running backs that at least I was kind of expecting. Now it was made up for a little bit in the beginning of round four. So you saw some guys that maybe got pushed down a little bit. But what's your perspective on that? Because I did hear from a lot of people that this is a great running back class. When I did my nerd score, which is like my tape evaluation, I thought that we at least deserved to have close to 10 running backs in the first 2 days. So what do you think about all that? Did we just miss it from our evaluation standpoint, or did the NFL just say, hey, since we have an abundance of guys, we're not going to prioritize it as high, and we can get the same caliber of guy in most years you'd get in the third, we can get that guy in the fourth?
I think that it was a strong running back class. I don't think we were wrong on that. I think the league liked this running back class. I don't think we were wrong on that. I thought we were going to get that run, yeah, sometime there in round three, and then like a bunch of corners went off the board, a bunch of tackles went off the board. Probably like a bit of a position scarcity thing. There's only 4 or 5 of these guys left that we like versus there's 10 running backs left that we like and what have you. But the moment we got to the top of round four, right? Tootin goes 104, Scadaboo goes 105, Trevor Etienne 114, Woody Marks 116, Jarquez Hunter 117, Dylan Sampson 126. That run there to me was the like oh, okay, all these guys are still available, like let's go, sort of
Yeah.
moment. So I don't think anybody was particularly wrong. I just think with where teams picked, when the moments came, where the class was going off the board fast, the positions of scarcity. In round 3, I was like, oh man, like 5 backs are going to go, and only Caleb Johnson goes. And I just think teams were willing to risk missing out on the running back they liked to get, the last corner that they liked, the last tackle that they liked, one of those guys. And then all of a sudden, everybody's making their plans for day 3, and it's like, oh shoot, like all of these backs are left. Let's go. And you saw trade ups to go get those guys. You saw a lot of them leave the board.
So with some of those guys at the beginning there, the Cam Scadaboos, the Teutons, the Woody Marks,
Mm-hmm.
how likely is it, do you think, that these guys kind of buck the trend of, like, if it's a day 3 running back, it's like very, very hit and miss, whereas like these backs are looked at as legitimate assets that are getting get an opportunity to get run early with their teams?
Yeah, I think that, right, there's enough round 4, round 5 success stories. There's enough Tony Pollards, enough Chase Browns that you want to take these guys seriously, knowing that, yeah, your hit rate's going to be like, what, 1 in 4, 1 in 5, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
From a usefulness perspective, like all of these players had legitimate value to me. Like I think that, Samson was the big name, but like I liked Tootin better than I liked Samson. I liked Woody Marks quite a bit coming out of USC. Like to me, there are guys that I'm interested in. And then from a again, I'm talking about team landing spot perspective, I really like Woody Marks. I think Woody Marks is a perfect fit for what the Texans need as that running back too. They need a third down back. Joe Mixon is a acceptable receiver, but he's not a remarkable receiver. He was a very high volume ball carrier. He was a high volume ball carrier with the Bengals. There's a lot of work on those tires already. He is getting a little bit older. Dario Ngubawale was their second guy. So like Marks to me is the sort of guy that I look at and I go, okay, I very much expect him to be running back 2 in year 1. I very much expect him to have a year 1 role. And then all I need is Joe Mixon to miss some time, right? And then there's a little bit of a ceiling there. Obviously, I think everybody's over the moon on Tootin because that backfield is up for grabs. New coaching staff, new front office. Travis Etienne is on a contract year. Bigsby had his good moments last year, but still needs to actually win the job and what have you. So like Tootin's another one that when you get to your late second, early third turns, right, in your dynasty rookie drafts, like I've been looking for him. So there are guys there that you like, but you're windowing, right? You're either gonna hit the lotto or you're gonna miss completely. That's kind of the nature of some of these late round backs.
So let's move to the quarterback position for a second. Obviously, if a guy goes in the first round for fantasy football, we pay attention to that.
Mm-hmm.
Cam Ward goes 1-1 overall. We saw Jackson Dart go in the 20s there. But after those two guys, I mean, we came off a year where we had 6 guys go in the first round to a year where we only had 2 guys go in the first round. Of the other quarterbacks for fantasy football, who do you think we should still be paying attention to, whether it's because they're going to have opportunity earlier rather than later, or because the skill set really lends itself to points, or for whatever reason? Like, what other quarterbacks outside of those 2 should we be keeping an eye on?
Shuck for sure. I had my issues with Shuck as a prospect that I would be hitching my real life NFL team to because he's got a big injury history. He is super old. Like by the time he gets to his second contract, he's already going to be 31, like so on and so forth. From a fantasy perspective, he's going to start. Like he's going to, if not all 17 games, then a majority of those games. He's not much of a runner in general. However, like Kellen Moore is coming from a team that just spammed sneaks on 4th and short. And while Tyler Shuck does not squat, a bajillion pounds or whatever Jalen Hurts does, still a big body. Like they're still going to be willing to do sneaks with him. So you might pick up a rushing touchdown here or there. In majority, though, you're just going to get a level of snaps, right, that you're not going to get from a Jalen Milroe early doors. You're not going to be getting from a Dylan Gabriel early doors. And Shuck, from a talent level perspective, is to me like levels above those 2 guys in terms of NFL readiness, ability to execute an offense. And so Shuck is the I personally liked him quite more than Dart coming out. And then from a fantasy perspective, I just think he's going to get snaps earlier, get more uncontested snaps. He's the new coaching staff's guy relative to Dart, who might end up being the old coaching staff's guy by this time next year. So Shuck to me for sure.
Absolutely. What about a Jalen Milroe? Obviously, we know there were some issues as a passer in college, but I don't think anyone would deny his freakish athletic ability at the next level. We look at a guy like Justin Fields, who maybe hasn't had the most NFL success, but when he's been on the field, he's been very useful for fantasy managers because of what he does on the ground. Where's that risk reward for you where we don't know that he's ever truly going to get an opportunity, get a job? Right now he's behind Sam Darnold, so it, kind of depend on how he does there in Seattle. But that immense upside, at least for fantasy purposes, is absolutely there.
Yeah, I want to have Milroe exposure, and I want like from a fantasy perspective, it's really important. It's important to say this with clarity. Jalen Milroe is a better runner of the football, ball in hand, than Justin Fields is, like, comfortably. He's better than he was when he was at Ohio State. He's going to be better in the league. The same is true of Anthony Richardson and Kyler Murray and Malik
Mhm.
Willis. Milroe is the best ball in hand runner we have seen at the quarterback position come out since Lamar. Right, in terms of guys who scare you the moment they choose to tuck and run, he's better than all those guys who come out in
Yep.
the last 6-7 years. So if and when Milroe plays, is gonna he's gonna put up fantasy points. Like is gonna put up a useful number of points for your team. I can't promise you how many snaps he's gonna get, but at the same time, we have to remember it was this front office. It was John Schneider's Seattle front office that signed Matt Flynn for agency, drafted Russell Wilson in the third round, and then said, you guys figure it out, right? And obviously, the financial
Fair.
commitment to Darnold is a lot more than it was to Flynn. But that's just because the quarterback landscape has changed. That's because like now to sign a guy just takes way more. And so I don't think they are nearly committed enough to Darnold to rule out the possibility that a bad Seahawks team benches Darnold to give Milroe starts this year. And if Milroe starts, like again, from a football perspective, might not be too pretty. From a fantasy perspective, oh yeah, like he's going to rip off explosive runs. He's going to score touchdowns. Yeah, the ceiling there is very high.
Awesome. Let's move over to wide receiver for a second. Of all of the players outside of the guys that went in the first round, what player was like the best hand and glove fit where you're like, man, this receiver with this offense is just, I love it. It's a perfect fit for their skill set, what they need, how the quarterback plays, how they scheme these players open. Like it's just a perfect fit. What was your favorite?
I like Tre Harris to the Chargers a lot. The Chargers have needed and have been looking for a big receiver who actually wins downfield. Right, with Josh Palmer, they had a guy who was a third round pick who was fine for being a third round pick, but wasn't necessarily like the high impact that they wanted in terms of winning the 50-50 balls up against the sideline. Quentin Johnson, they go and they spend the first round pick. Okay, this is going to be size for us. The Chargers are a big size team. They like big bodies, right? So it's okay, we're going to go get our big dude. He's going to have speed. He's going to win down the field. And then it's just been a total miss on QJ, right? And so like that role, they have been trying to make that role work, and they just have struggled to do so. They take Ladd McConkey last year because, all right, the talent is inarguable. We'll play him in the slot, and he was excellent for them. So, okay, now you have your guy in Ladd. You have a guy you can throw targets to, whatever. Now they go back to that role with Tre Harris out of Ole Miss, who I did not think I would like Tre Harris. I typically don't like players like this. Lane Kiffin offense, Bryles offense. He runs 4 total routes. Like, ex-high school quarterback. He's not going to be technically refined. He's just good. He's just good at receiver. He understands how to run routes, understands how to separate. He's got good ball tracking ability. He plays big. Like, I think everything that you saw in QJ at TCU that you were like, all right, hopefully he can figure this out, and he was never able to. Tre's already passed those lines of rawness. So I think Harris is going to walk in and immediately become wide receiver 2. I think he's just going to beat out Quentin Johnson, period, and beat out Mike Williams, period, right? Like that, it's done. Then it becomes okay. What's the ceiling? How much volume can he get relative to Ladd? That's probably where he's not like the highest ceiling pick for you in the world. But in terms of like fit, Herbert loves to throw to these guys. Herbert loves to throw just 6'3" dudes who are covered. Like he's obsessed with it. Probably a little bit too much. So he's going to give Harris his opportunities, and I think Harris as better than Mike Will, this version of him in 2025, better than Quentin Johnson, who's on the roster right now. Like Harris is going to win those snaps. So I have a lot of excitement for Tre Harris, the prospect, and I thought he landed in a really good spot for him.
I would totally agree because I was lukewarm on him as a prospect, but the one thing that was the difference between him and Quentin Johnston was his ball skills were much better than Quentin Johnston's ever were. And so that was the thing that I wanted to see. Is he just let's go deep and we'll chuck it to you? And no, he actually has some refinement in his game. So definitely a very, very interesting name to see there. Was there a wide receiver in that day 2 range that you're just like, man, I'm surprised they went there, or I'm surprised they went this early, or I just don't get it.
I don't see the vision with Isaac Tesla with the Lions. Like I get it. Like he tested out of this world, but like he's a year away from being a year away. I imagine the hope is that he's enough of a deep threat by the end of year 1 that you're able to maybe do something with the Jameson Williams contract. Let him walk. Don't let him walk. Thinking, like, yeah. But again, to me, that you're squinting and trying to see it, right? It is going to learn something about NFL physicality, press coverage of the line of scrimmage, kind of dealing with the first 5 yards of that route. It's going to be a learning process for him. Savion Williams to the Packers also made no sense to me at all. I do not know. There's like they're going to do cool stuff with him, but you already have enough guys to do cool stuff with. Like you're already good at the cool
Jaden
stuff.
Reed, yeah.
You have to get good at like just lining up with third and 8 and kind of winning. And Love already gives you like a lot there because Love does cool stuff. You just need to be like more, you need to be more basic, you need to be more controlled. They'd already taken Matthew Golden. So those two I was very surprised by.
Yeah. Pat Bryant ended up sneaking into the third round, which he was a player I liked. I was, on our show, I was the highest on him. But even for me, I was kind of surprised that he went in the third round. That seemed higher than I was expecting him to go. What do you think his fit with Denver is going to be like, especially considering, similar type of player to a Courtland Sutton that who knows who's going to be moving on? Seems like a clear path, but what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the way that Sean Payton's talked about him, because Sean Payton has invoked Michael Thomas's name a couple times, is that they want to use him in the big slot role, which is where they had Devon Vele last year as a 7th-round pick out of Utah. Had a couple of good games to him. Wasn't necessarily like a high volume player. They played little Jordan Humphrey as well, similar body type in that sort of a role. And Bryant is weirdly good, like releasing and getting into his fast breaking routes. I agree with you. Like he's big and like the above the rim stuff is impressive, but he plays bigger than he is. Like he's actually like he plays like you're like 6'4", 210. He's like 6'1.5". Like he's not actually like that caliber of size. So I think they're going to use him more as like a big slot role. So I think you're going to see the starting 2 receivers be Marvin Mims and Courtland Sutton, and deservedly so. And then when they go to the 11 personnel, they're going to want a lot of those snaps to be Bryant snaps and going to fight Vele for some of those in camp. Obviously, you have Troy Franklin there as well, and you need more speed, but you're going to see him in that rotation. But you're going to see him more so doing like the short intermediate stuff, being the stick moving sort of a guy. If they can get more out of him on some of the intermediate downfield stuff, he can fill some of that Sutton role. That's interesting for them, right? Sutton's 30. He's a rising free agent, right? They have to be honest about how much longer they have of him. I'm not saying they're going to, move on from him, but the light at the end of the tunnel is there a little bit. And so maybe they moonlight him in that role a touch, but I expect him more to be wide receiver 3 in the big slot stuff.
Tight end position. So we had 2 guys go inside of the top 15. Neither landing spot is perfect. Obviously, the Chicago offense is super exciting, but there's a question of what's the pecking order? Who's getting snaps where, and how much volume is Loveland going to be able to get? And then you have Warren, who it's one of the most wide open rooms as far as opportunity to potentially catch passes, but you have less than ideal quarterback play right now in this offense. So for you, between those 2 guys, does one, like from a fantasy perspective, would one rise above the other, or are they both kind of in a similar spot?
I like Loveland more than Warren coming out. I like Loveland's landing spot more than I like Warren's. I like Loveland's quarterback situation more than I like Warren's. Like to me, it's Loveland the whole way. The thing that Warren did very well at Penn State and will do well in the NFL is some like the screen stuff and the design touches and
Sure.
and that. But like he has to earn that over like Josh Downs and earn that over Michael Pittman. You have to kind of earn the plays of the playbook that get designed for you, even if you're drafted top 15 as a tight end. Loveland's going to walk in and be immediately successful, is much better of a receiver than Cole Kmet is. And I don't think this new staff is in any way, shape, or form committed to Cole Kmet. People talk about, because Colston Loveland is like Sam Laporta. I don't think he's like Sam Laporta. I don't think, like, stylistically, I don't think they play that similarly. Laporta's a lot more curves, angles, corners, change of direction. Loveland's a lot more linear. So I think you're going to see bigger plays out of Loveland. Laporta gets like 50-yard touchdown catch and runs like the Ben Johnson stuff. But you're going to see some of the above the rim catches you don't necessarily see from Laporta, and some of the catch through contact as well. And like I said, you have a new coaching staff. So not the coaching staff that was there when they drafted Rome Odunze, not the coaching staff that was there when they traded for DJ Moore. You have a quarterback in Caleb Williams who 1 year with DJ Moore did not show it was not an amazing connection. 1 year with Rome Odunze was not an amazing connection. I think I don't think Loveland's going to end up the target 1 for the Bears. I think that's unreasonable. However, there's a much better chance that Loveland ends up being the target 1 for the Bears in multiple games this season than I think people are allowing for. I think that's like the wild, wild west right now in terms of who gets targets and where they get targets and who goes ahead, because they need a full reload and rehaul of that offense. And so to me, I'm rocket ships to the moon on Colston Loveland. He's one of the top players coming out. Like I said, I'm clearly above Warren, and I love where he landed. I think it's going to be great for him.
Yeah, played like a big wide receiver. Loved the way that he was able to move and some of the best hands that I've seen at a tight end in a while. Yep. So totally with you there. Let's kind of take a look at the overall class here now. Give me a guy on day 3 that maybe isn't getting a lot of love, but you're like, I have something for this guy. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but I got a feeling on this guy that he's just not getting enough publicity, not getting enough love, whether it was because of his pre-draft stuff, where he landed, whatever. Like,
Mhm.
who's a guy that you're kind of keeping your eye on that would be in our fantasy scope?
Yeah. So I mentioned a couple of the running backs, Woody Markson and Bashal Tootin, who I like quite a bit. I will say that I think that no, Fan didn't go day 3. He went day 2. He was a tight end guy. I liked Oronde Gadsden, the tight end out of Syracuse,
Mm,
quite a bit. He lands with the Los Angeles Chargers, who the Chargers had a couple more needs than they had picks, and so they end up taking their tight end. I want to say round 4, late 4 what's Gadsden, but that room right now is Tyler Conklin, Will Disley, right? And
sure.
they are going to play multiple tight ends, right? They're going to have this heavier personnel packages. We know it's going to be part of Greg Roman's offense. So I think you're going to see Gadsden work his way onto the field a little bit. And Gadsden's a funny one because he's a wide receiver convert to tight end. And so the thought is, okay, he's going to be undersized. He's not going to be good at blocking, but he's going to be like this like great mover down the field. And really, like, he is undersized and he's not great at blocking. However, he looks like he could add like another like 15, 20 pounds. Like his body has very much grown into like, oh no, that is a tight end looking dude. So I don't
Mhm.
think of him as like a, 240-pound, Isaiah Likely type. I think of him much more as like a Josh Oliver type, who Oliver comes out of San Jose State at 240. Everybody's like, oh, he's going to be like lined up as the X receiver. And no, they just put mass on him and they played him at actual tight end. Now, obviously, Oliver's not had a very prolific career catching the football, but Gadsden's a very, very good catcher of the ball. And I would not be surprised to see him grow into like a full 3-down tight end sort of a guy. Maybe not in year 1, but year 2 and year 3. So Gadsden was a player that I liked quite a bit. Another Charger I bring with Tre Harris, but there's going to be snaps available for him because that room is very, very thin. And he's got some pro readiness in terms of routes, in terms of catching the ball. So Oronde Gadsden the second out of Syracuse to Los Angeles is a guy I like.
Love it. All right, I'm gonna name a few of these round 7 running backs.
Uh
Give me, is there any one of them that have any interest to you at all? So we have Damian Martinez. He went to Miami, or
oh. Mm-hmm.
sorry, he went to Seattle from Miami. We have Brashard Smith. He went to Kansas City. We have Kyle Monungai. He went to Chicago. We have LaQuint Allen. He went to Jacksonville. And then we have Phil Maffa. He went to who was it? The Cowboys. Ja'Cory Krosky Merritt. He went to the Commanders. And I think, is that it? I think that's it. So
Mm-hmm.
any of those guys, because those were all names that, we're exciting names pre-draft, but we know round 6, round 7, that's a tough one to come back from. Any of those guys that still pique your interest?
Yeah, I like Damian Martinez a lot. The scheme fit is good in Seattle with a wide zone offense. If and when they trade a back, because you've kind of heard a little bit of buzz around Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, like maybe they're going to move on from a guy. So if and when they trade a back, I'll get very interested in Damian Martinez because I think that if he gets carries, he's going to make those carries impactful and he's going to earn his way into a rotation. So if that room thins out, I like Martinez. And then Kyle Monungai out of Rutgers. When you watch Monungai, like
He was one of my favorite players in the class. Yeah.
the ceiling comp was very clearly David Montgomery, right? In terms of the play style and the toughness, the hard nose, and just the ability to kind of make some guys miss in tight spaces with some good, surprising agility. That low riding frame, he protects the football. Like you could see, okay, like there are some worlds where he can be a David Montgomery like player. He lands in Chicago where they have DeAndre Swift, and that's great. I do not think, again, I think that it's the wild, wild west there in terms of who gets touches. Like, I think that Swift's contract is very move onable from, right? Ben Johnson had some time with DeAndre Swift in Detroit. They did not get the best out of DeAndre Swift there in Detroit when he was there, and they obviously moved on from him. And so to me, like, if that backfield becomes a 3-headed backfield, if guys have the opportunity to win job snaps in camp, Monungai will do coaches will like a player like Monungai because he'll get precisely what is blocked. Like he's not going to be an idiot back there. He's not going to bounce around and go into the wrong gap and try to make guys miss. He's gonna execute the play. Coaches like that in a 1st and 10 carry, right? Just keep my offense on schedule. So those are the two that I liked coming out. And then I think Martinez, if there's some more room in the room, but Monungai right now there's enough room in the room that I wouldn't be surprised to see him get at least some touches over the course of the season.
I'm absolutely with you, and I know Roshan Johnson's there, and it's a name people keep bringing back up, and I get it. But he's had 2 years in the league, and this is a different regime now. It's not the same coaching staff that drafted him. You would think they're going to give an opportunity to
Roshan's
their guy.
was a 4th-round pick who hasn't done anything with his opportunities. Like they're not making space for Roshan Johnson anymore. That's not a thing.
Nope. Ben, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for joining me today. Had a blast talking about this class, kind of an overview, how it looks NFL-wise and fantasy-wise. I know you don't need our plug, but tell the people where they can find you and whatever you're working on right now.
You got to plug, man. You got to keep the plug muscles sharp. I mean, it's the off season, so I ain't working on jack. But it is. I'm at Benjamin Solak on Twitter and Blue Sky and all the socials. Works up at ESPN.com. I just did 2024 wide receiver class recap, kind of looking at Brian Thomas Jr. and Ladd and Malik Neighbors and all those guys. So that's up. We'll do a couple more of those over the course of the offseason as well. Articles up there. So Meet a Kime Show featuring Lenny. I'm on that pod semi-frequently. Come say hi.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back. We have content dropping basically every single day here on the channel. So make sure you stay tuned for what we have coming next.